Hey guys, welcome back to Medical Coding with Blue. Today's episode is all about the advice I would have given myself as a brand new medical coder. If you're brand new to my channel, welcome. I am Blue, I'm a medical coder. Okay, so I got a comment from a viewer. Thank you to the viewer who made the comment. I'm going to read the comment and then we're going to get into it. So, here we go. All right, so the comment reads, what do you wish you would have known at the beginning of your career as a medical coder, and what advice would you give yourself? So, the advice that I would give myself is going to be three things today. But just keep in mind, my episodes are not scripted. Everything is off the cuff, and I'm just speaking on experience. So if you get more than three, well, you got a bonus. But the first thing that I would say is to question everything. Question everything and do your research. Now, I am good at both of these things, okay? And I'm not somebody who will just believe people, right off the okay, they say to do it this way, and this is the way I'm going to do it because that's what they said. I want to know why. And that curiosity has kept me learning more and more every single day. And that has kept me on the right track and accurate as well. Whereas I've seen some of my coworkers fall into the trap of, okay, well, so-and-so does it this way, so I'm doing it that way too, because they don't know to do their research, okay? So that's the thing that I would say is most important. Sometimes people will tell you things and it's true because they'll give you like a reference on how they got to it or whatever. And then sometimes people will say things because that's the way it's always been done. If you're saying things because that's the way that it's always been done, you know that that's wrong as a medical coder. Everybody, any veteran coder who's worth their weight in salt, so they would know that that is not the proper way to be. You cannot just do that, guys. You cannot just say, this is the way we've done it. It's been this way this whole time, and we're not going to change. Guidelines change, rules change. We are not even coding the same way as we were 10 years ago. So that's something that you have to think about, guys. And 10 years ago, we were in ICD-9 times, all right? So we haven't been in ICD-10 quite as long just yet because ICD-10 got implemented in October of 2015. So we're not quite there yet. But you have to be expecting change. There's always going to be change in this industry, whether it is with the rules or the regulations or whatever the case may be, the guidelines, the whole coding system as far as, of course, ICD-10, got implemented. But that's something that you have to always be keeping your eye on, is that change. Now, when I started, I didn't know ICD-10 was coming just yet. I had no idea. I figured, okay, this is the way that it is. We're going to start doing this. And then it wasn't until a few years later that there's those rumblings of, okay, we're going to start getting ICD-10. And then it kept getting delayed. And it was just like, okay, are we ever going to do this? Or, or is it always going to be this way? And we're going to be so far behind the informational curve as the U.S., And so as it turned out, we got it. And I did learn. I did learn from that experience. I learned from the training that I got at that time, but that was also part of question everything. Don't just go with whatever somebody tells you. Don't just go along to get along, all right? There's going to be times when you're going to know more than your peers. You're going to know more than people who are above you, people who are more experienced than you. But you cannot be intimidated by that fact. You have to be willing to stand up for yourself, and that's something that's another thing, is don't be afraid to stand up for yourself, because if you're right and you have the documentation to prove that you're right, then you need to show that. You need to be willing to use your voice and use your knowledge and to say, okay, I understand you see it this way, but here's this, and what about this, and this is what I see here, and this is what I understand it to be. Is this right? So a good auditor will explain why it is or it isn't right. Now, keep in mind also this other thing too. When it comes to auditors in the beginning, especially when you're brand new and they know you're brand new, sometimes they will take advantage of this fact and be like, oh, they don't know, and but that's why I say you have to know how to do your research, so that way you can bring everything to them and they can know, okay, this person's not playing around. Because there's really no room to be playing around with people's medical records as far as like the diagnoses that are being reported and things like that. there's really no excuse for the attitude of, I'm just here to collect a check and go home. Your code selections directly affect a lot of people who will never ever see you. They will never ever see you. They will probably never ever know your name. But you have their whole medical history in your hands. You have all the procedures that happen to them in your hands. So it is a great responsibility, and you have to take it seriously. And that's why I always say, make sure that you educate yourself. I wouldn't have to give myself that advice as a brand new medical coder, because I was still doing it. I was still educating myself. Now, even though it wasn't as hardcore as it is now, but in 2014, that's when it all changed. I was like, oh, okay. But that's when we were learning ICD-10. So that's why that came into play. But you're always going to be learning. That's something that I would definitely tell myself is that you're always going to be learning. And I think, I already knew that part. But as far as like the studying, the nuances of studying differently, as far as like not just concentrating on learning coding stuff, but actually taking the time to learn the doctor stuff. And that's when I started learning to read. Learn to read because learning to read those big words because I started reading the New England Journal of Medicine. And to me, it was just like, oh my gosh, these words are going way over my head. I don't understand. But then, I faced that fear and I got past it, and I just kept reading. And even though some of it didn't make any sense and I didn't understand and it wasn't my specialty, it did help me to understand their language, provider language and surgeon language, and how they speak. And then when I saw it one day where I started to understand what they were saying, because they were talking really loud in the hallway and my door was open and I could hear them, and they were talking about a particular procedure, not a patient. They were talking about a procedure and how to perform the procedure. And I was like, oh my gosh, I get what they're saying, because it had been something that I had read about in the New England Journal of Medicine. So I was like, oh, and that was one of the things that I was so excited about. And that's one of the things that when you really get into it, you get involved and you get invested, it doesn't become a chore anymore. It doesn't become like, oh my gosh, I've got to do all this reading and I see this and I see that. It was just on a whim one day, that I started reading the New England Journal of Medicine. I was on eBay and I was shopping, and then it was doing one of those suggestion things. And then it started to show, because I was buying some books for medical terminology, and it started to show all these things that it suggested. And then the New England Journal of Medicine was one of them. I was like, well, I guess I could read it, And so I bought a copy, and then I was just like, okay, now I'm hooked. And so that was that after that, And they're very interesting articles. You actually can sign up online, and they have like free access to some of the articles and things like that. So it is worth it, and it's a free resource, for the ones that's, it's free articles. But of course, if you want to get the more in-depth stuff, it's a really good thing if you're going to invest in yourself and learn something different. For some people, it's a little too advanced for them and they don't want to get intimidated. But for me, like I say, you can't just live your life in fear of, learning new things, or, oh, I don't understand medical terminology, or I don't understand anatomy, so I just want to give it all up and throw it all away. If that's the case, then don't spend any more time with it, because it's going to be a constant thing. And if it takes that little bit just to scare you off, then what are you really doing? So that's my first thing there. The second thing would be talk to your providers. Talk to your providers. And I used to be very intimidated by my providers, because all I could think of when I first started is, why do they want to know anything that I have to say? I'm just a medical coder. I have a certification, and that's it. And, what could they possibly learn from me? And it wasn't until I got moved into the hospital, because we had been housed away from the providers for years, and which has probably had a hand in how I felt being intimidated, because I didn't see them on a daily basis. I didn't work in the same clinic as them. I worked in a ancillary building. So, that was where I was. I was off in the corner somewhere, and in this room with 20 women, but I was off in the corner somewhere, and I didn't see them, and I saw them maybe one time before we moved into the new hospital. And it was just like, oh, okay, this is a quick, meeting, that kind of thing, and just sort of put a face with a name. But it wasn't until I moved in to that new hospital that I started to meet them. And then that intimidation feeling kicked in, like, oh my gosh, I feel so intimidated because they're so smart and they know all of these things and they use all these big words, and I could never possibly have anything relevant to say to them. And that's what I thought. I knew I was a good medical coder at the time, and now I would say, I know a lot more, a heck of a lot more now than I did back then. But it wasn't until that one provider came up to me and said, Blue, I don't know coding. You know the coding. This is where, we can work together because, I need help understanding this. And, I speak doctor and you speak medical coder, and I can understand you and you can understand me. Because there's a lot of coders that, doctors will start to speak and then it'd be like, I don't understand what you're saying, And to me, he never heard me say that. He never heard me say, what? Because I would take mental note of what he was saying, and the things that I didn't understand, if I didn't immediately get it, then I would go back to my office and be like, what is this? What is this? What is this? And that's how I understood what he was saying, And after a while, I just sort of, like I said, learning more and more. And so doing that, I would definitely tell myself, talk to them. Don't be scared of them, because they need to have our feedback. And there's always this sort of idea that there's animosity and things like that. There's not, because, doctors and nurses have their relationship, but their relationship is different from doctor and medical coder. And that's where a lot of confusion comes into play, because you'll see that, like, that hierarchy type, mentality in the workplace where, oh, well, I'm the nurse. Well, I understand that, but I'm his coder. And what I have to say is just as important as what you have to say. And so there's a difference in the relationships, though. With doctors and nurses, the nurses are going to work under the doctor's direction. The doctor's going to tell them what to do. And for us as medical coders, we have to work with them. We are their teammates. They don't tell us what to do. Doctors do not tell us what to do. They can document, and we can help them to improve their documentation to better reflect what happened in the situation, but they cannot tell us, I want this code, and not have supportive documentation. Cannot do that, because we are bound by ethics in order to code what is there. All right. So there's a difference there. And for some coders that know that, they take advantage, and they're just like, well, I'm going to teach this provider a lesson. I'm going to do this. If you ever feel that way, you're in the wrong, because you should never feel like that you're above the doctor and that you can tell the doctor what to do. It's not that way. It's that you all are teammates, and you're supposed to work together in order to get to the common goal, which is better documentation, and then you can work faster. The provider that I just told y'all about, his documentation was decent when I first started, and I didn't have any issues because, again, I didn't know as much. And then it wasn't until I really started to talk to him and just like, okay, because he was like, can you look at my stuff and where can I improve? And I'm like, you want me to find errors? And he's like, well, he goes, I just want to get better. And sure enough, I started to find, okay, there's like little holes here and there. But then that's understanding better the process of the specialty. And so I was like, okay. And so it helped me to learn that. It helped me to develop those relationships and how important that is. And of course, treating them like they are human and not putting them on this pedestal where you think that they're better. They're not. They're just like you. They're human. They have feelings. They have families. They get mad at their kids, and their spouse gets mad at them and things like that. And so sometimes they feel like they're not doing everything in like they're supposed to in the world. And so they get upset. And, they're usually the ones that are like doling out, this and this. But sometimes if you see that they're doing something really good in their documentation, you could turn all of that around and you can be the one to tell them, oh my gosh, this is so great. Now, I'm not saying that you got to do this every single time because then it's not going to mean anything. But if you do it in those moments where it does mean something, that's going to get their attention. And like this person sees me and I'm not just, just a surgeon, or I'm not just a doctor. I'm somebody who's important. I'm somebody who, is doing something good. Or if I'm doing something bad, I also need to know that. And you got to be really careful when you're telling them that they're doing bad, because sometimes coders think that that's the only reason that they got to talk to doctors or the nurse, or, the nurse practitioner or the PA, is that they're doing something bad, and that's not what you want. You don't want to get that relationship of, oh, I only hear bad things from this person. You want to get a good relationship. And that would definitely be something that I would say, is that if they're doing good, you got to let them know, but not all the time, because it's not going to mean anything. But if they're doing bad, you don't need to tell them, hey, you're doing bad. This is horrible. You just need to say, okay, what's going on here? According to this, and this, this is what I see when I'm coding this. And, when we went over the education, that kind of thing, what's the problem? So it's just something like that, just some way of talking it through, and not, just getting after them. You don't want to do that. You just want to make sure that they understand that this is a teamwork, and they shouldn't feel like, sometimes they say, well, Blue, I don't want to feel stupid. Really? You would feel like that? You're a doctor. You shouldn't feel like that, but they do. And they don't want to feel like they're less than their peers, So that's why I say be very careful when you're talking to them, when you're giving them advice and things like that. Try to make sure that there's no, not a big crowd around. I like to get my providers when they're by themselves in their office. I'll stand at the doorway and I'll talk to them and things like that. So that way that they know that I'm not sitting here trying to call them out in front of everybody. Okay. And so that's the only thing I would say, is that don't be afraid to talk to them. And of course, my bear trap comes to mind. I started the bear trap. And bear trap, if you don't know, is I would leave snacks out and water and things like that, because what do you do? How do you attract alpha animals, right? You attract them by putting out food. You can put food out, and the bears will come by and start to snack. Well, it's the same thing with providers. They'll come in there and they'll relax, and they'll have a snack, and they'll just calm down, and they'll talk to you, and that's a good way to have good communication. And so that was something else that had I not thought of that of its importance, talking to providers, I probably would have never done that. And then there's going to be your coworkers that will tell you, oh, you don't have to do that. Why are you doing that? You think you're better, and that kind of thing. There's going to be people like that, no matter where you go, no matter what you do. But you be yourself, which is what's bringing me to my last point, is to be yourself, and don't ever change for anybody. But if you are going to change, let it be for a positive thing, not for something that's negative. Because people will try to put you down for anything and everything. You could be the nicest, sweetest person in the world, and you could dress nicely, and you could be so polite, and they're going to come up with some excuse. Oh, well, they're just a big faker, or they're just this, or they're just that. They'll say horrible things about you, and they'll try to make you feel bad for being yourself. And that's the one thing that I never worried about, because that's the one thing that no one will ever change me. And that's something that I want to tell all of you. And I would tell any other person that's a brand new medical coder, is that if you dress nicely, if you always come in and you want to dress nicely, and none of your other coworkers do that, and they say, oh, you're only doing it because you want to be better than the rest of us. No, it has nothing to do with you. It has nothing to do with you. It has everything to do with the person themselves. Everything. Because how you dress and how you present yourself to the world is the attitude and everything that you'll get back from people. And you have to look at the people that matter. Do your coworkers matter when they're putting you down because you dress a certain way, or because you want to be nicely dressed at work? Does it matter? No, it doesn't. Do they pay your rent? Do they pay your bills? No, they don't. And that's when you have to say to yourself, what they say about me doesn't matter. Now, I would be more concerned with what my providers would say about me. Am I helpful to them? Am I available when they need me to answer a question or whatever? That's what I would be concerned with. And when you focus on the right things and you focus on the things that matter the most, you're going to find that all of the other little messiness of the coworkers and everybody else who's trying to put you down is going to fall away, and it's not even going to matter. And you just keep doing what you do. You know, there's a lot of people, even on my channel, that say, oh, you laugh too much. One guy said I laugh inappropriately, but he thanked me 3 times in his comments. I'm like, whatever, I will still laugh anyway. And I put a row of laughing faces. You know, and some people have told me, oh, you clap too much. One lady just told me the other day, apparently she thinks we're in a relationship or something, that she could tell me that I shouldn't clap. But I'll still clap anyway. You know, to me, when I clap, it's because it's a part of the thing, right? On my channel. When I started the channel, I knew I didn't know how to edit my videos. So I started watching like Think Media. And they were saying, well, do things that, you know, you have to create some kind of noise to get the audience's attention. You have to make sure that you're speaking up louder because, you know, when you're on camera, it will bring you down like maybe 10 points on your voice and things like that. So you do have to punch up your energy. So I was like, oh, okay. And then they go, one of the things that you could do also is clap. And I was like, oh, I could do that. I said, hey guys, welcome back to Medical Coding with Blue. And so I didn't know it was a thing until Brian Quee, he's the medical coding geek. He was like, where did that come from? Why did you start doing it? I didn't know that it was a thing that people associated with me, but you know, what are you gonna do? But I will continue to laugh. I will continue to be myself. I will continue to clap. I will continue to dress up. I will continue to have my bear trap. I will continue to do all of those things. And that's what I would encourage you all to do. But I would also say that when you are on the road to self-improvement, not just professionally, but personally, because you'll see things change in time. Like I said, when I was working in that horrible tin can of a room, and I decided one day that I was going to dress up, because I didn't know at the time how important dressing up was, because I would wear jeans and a t-shirt to work. Now you cannot catch me wearing jeans and a t-shirt to work, because I understand now, and I'm more educated now in the importance of dressing up and, you know, and looking your best and feeling your best, you know, because that will go with that as well. You'll be more confident too. So some people will say, well, I don't want to dress up because none of my other coworkers do. But you just watch, do an experiment. You start dressing up, and I guarantee you're going to start seeing other people follow. I'm just saying. So that's it. That's my advice for today. But yes, continue to be yourself. Don't be afraid to talk to providers. Give them compliments when it's necessary, but you know, let them know that you're their teammate, and question everything. Do your research. Okay, that's my advice anyway. So if this video helped you, please like, subscribe, and share, and I'll see y'all next time. Bye.